Hello, everybody. I'm Bob Sherman, and I am proud to be here on behalf of the Yonkers Philharmonic. For a good long time, I would guess 20 years if I had to pin it down, but could be longer than that, I've been asked to host the winner's concert of the Yonkers Philharmonic competition. And it has been a special joy and often a revelation to see what these high school kids have been able to accomplish. And what we couldn't accomplish this year, obviously, is a new, fresh competition because of COVID. We could not have well, you understand, we can't have kids coming into a private home and playing and moving back and forth. It would just not work. So this is a retrospective. And in a way, the retrospective allows us to shine a light on something that usually doesn't get noticed, which is the long-term effects of and advantages of the concerto competition. So it is something that is vitally important to the future of these young artists, and by extension, the rest of us who love music. It's also a chance to pay homage to Josephine Caruso, who began these auditions and continued almost single-handedly to focus them, administer them, run them, and collect all these wonderful kids and make them available for the concerts with the Philharmonic. Now that element, the concert, is a very special point that really has to be focused on, I think, because it gets swept under the rug. There are a lot of competitions. A lot of high school kids go out and they get an award, they get a ribbon, they get a certificate, they get a cash award, which is always helpful. But it kind of stops there. Well, just think about these kids. They're in high school, they've been working, they've been sitting in their studio, practicing, studying, thinking about the scores, learning the concerto, working with their teachers, developing the skills, the technical skills and the musical understanding to present these performances. And then what are they going to do with them? Who is going to invite an unknown high school kid from Westchester to perform with a major orchestra? It's not going to happen. Well, here it does happen. And it happens 4 or 5 of these winners are chosen every year and perform and get the recognition and also the experience, because they're going to go on, they're going to need to know how to perform a concerto, how to listen to what the orchestra is doing. All of that is part of the development of a career, and all of that is missing in most youngsters' bookcase. It doesn't happen, and here it does. And I think what Josephine Caruso accomplished almost single-handedly is also quite astonishing and worth remembering and honoring. Because you take something like the Van Cliburn competition. Every 4 years, they have this big deal competition. But for the 3 years running up to it, there are a whole host of volunteers and paid professionals who are getting things set up, who are organizing, who are planning, who are working out the details of the auditions and everything else. Well, the Yonkers Philharmonic had Josephine Caruso, and she managed to do that. So we're going to hear some of these former winners. We're going to have interviews and see a few comments from others. And what I think you will find is that there are all sorts of degrees of excellence here. We have one of the players you're going to hear, Drew Peterson, was a recipient of an Avery Fisher Career Grant. Now that's, they've only issued about 135 of them in all 50 years or 40 or whatever it is that they have been giving these career grants. Well, Drew has one of them. That's an astonishing accomplishment. And here he was playing a few years ago with the Yonkers Philharmonic as a high school kid. So other elements take place differently. Other winners, former winners, have gone on to other elements in life and in music. But music remains a vital part of their life and their interests. We have a teacher, we have somebody who's working in musicology, all sorts of things. We have one fellow's in the West Point Band. So this is top-notch level we're talking about, and that indicates the degree of importance that the whole competition has just within the sphere of music in Westchester. So that's what we're about to enjoy, and I hope you do. it's an interesting point that you are not only helping these youngsters get a head start on their careers, but you are involving the listeners. The audience is sitting and understanding that they are watching great talent evolve at a very early stage in some cases, but nonetheless, they're there. I mean, wouldn't we like all to be there when Mozart came out as a 8-year-old and then played his piano? Wouldn't we have loved to be there when Beethoven played his first piano sonata out? Of course. Well, some of these kids, that's what we're going to say. I was there. Well, Michael Davidman. Here's another. We're going to hear him today. And here's another kid. I first encountered him, and he was first on my broadcast when he was a high school kid at I think it was Hunter High School that he was. It's called actually Hunter College High School, but whatever it is. And actually, I thought it was very amusing. He was bursting to get out. He couldn't stand being cooped up in a regular high school. He wanted to get to a conservatory where he could devote his whole time to music. Well, that's the kind of energy and excitement that he brings to an audience. And when an audience senses that excitement and realizes you're looking at a bunch of kids, high school kids. I mean, from our vantage point, there are even more kids. But basically, the audience is looking at these 16, 17-year-olds, and they're thinking, boy, when my kid was 17, I couldn't get him away from the soccer field or whatever it is. And there they are. They are speaking to us, and we know that we are listening to, we are seeing the artists of tomorrow. We are seeing the future here in Yonkers. And it's kind of an exciting thing. It doesn't happen very often. And it happens constantly. Every year it happens with a different set of winners.
When did you win? 1999. What was your rank? First prize. What instrument do you play? Violin. What inspired you to pursue a career in music? I started violin when I was 5, but I was a late bloomer. It wasn't until college that I finally thought, this is why I want to work harder and become a better musician. I'm forever grateful for my teacher at Juilliard, Miss Naoko Tanaka, and Maestro Seiji Ozawa was also a huge part of my inspiration in getting to the point where I am now. It ranges from learning about every single composer and style, from Miss Tanaka, techniques, everything. And Maestro Ozawa taught me, all about orchestra, chamber music, opera, and well, it's endless. But it was just a great experience. What did winning the competition mean to you? Many things. It was the first time playing a full concerto with an orchestra for me. Winning the competition at that age, I think I was a junior in high school. As a teenager, it meant hard work paid off. I do remember my audition room. I remember lining up to receive the medal and the friendly smiles from the orchestra musicians when I got on stage. And I really remember the feeling of happiness when I finished playing. What was the favorite and most meaningful performance or experience in your career? I've got 2 that I hang on to, but I will share the one of mine when I was in New York. It was on Christmas Eve at Carnegie Hall with the New York String Seminar Orchestra. Leon Fleischer was playing Beethoven's Emperor Concerto, and this happened in the second movement. I was first and second violin, so I was in the center stage, and we play this beautiful intro, and we hold the long note. We played it really, really quietly, maybe just one hair of bow. And I remember looking up at Leon Fleischer because it was just a long note and we didn't have anything else. I remember looking up at him, and I also saw the Carnegie lights behind him, and he played the first 2 notes. Da-da. And you could feel the energy from every single musician on stage, the audience with their eyes wide, and you can feel everybody was holding their breath until the phrase ended, and it was just the most beautiful moment. I felt goosebumps all over my body, like on my face, on my eye, everywhere, in my hair. It's just all this goosebumps. And it was a combination of Christmas Eve, end of the year. The ghosts of Carnegie Hall were definitely there smiling at that time. It was just, I'll never forget. What makes our competition stand out? That we get to perform the concerto with your orchestra, and the age range of your competition is really the beginning of confidence, boost of confidence, inspiration as the young, as a young musician at that time. And it's just a wonderful experience that is given out in an opportunity. What advice would you give young musicians? During this COVID time, the arts are hurting, and conservatories, all the schools, it's not the same as how it should be as a growing musician, but it's really important to hang on to what you love about music and your instrument, and whatever you do, you have to love what you're doing. You have to love your job. You have to love your instrument and everything. And that's what's kept me going all these years.
One of the things that has remained constant is the amazement that I find in the gifts of these young kids. Just think what a youngster these days, or even over the last 20 years, the number of possibilities they have, the sports that they'd like to play, the videos they'd like to watch, all of the things that are available to young kids now. And yet, through all of this period, they have that same devotion. Because you can't just be casual about music if you're going to be a serious performer. You can't do it. You can't just occasionally practice or occasionally look over the scores. You have to devote hours a day to studying, thinking, reading, practicing. So all of these things require a very special kind of devotion. And that, I think, has been the most consistent element, because without it, they're not going to come close. They're not going to get to the finals. They're not going to be considered, because the performances won't speak to you as a listener. It won't grab you. They won't entice you. They won't pull you in, because they're just notes. A lot of kids can play notes, but we want music. We want the understanding of the score. We want some kind of personality to emerge. Even these are high school kids, but there still has to be some sort of message that is coming across. We're sitting in the audience and we are watching these youngsters and they're playing. Well, we have to get the message of what's beyond the notes, what's in the music, and what's in their experience that they need to share with us. And that has been the same. I don't think there's been any kind of change there, because without that, you don't have a winner.
My name is Joyce Henery. I moved to Yonkers in 1980. Prior to that, I lived for 10 years in Potsdam, New York, very involved with the music school there. And prior to that, I lived in Vienna, where I got my Masters of Music, actually a triple Masters of Musical Performance in opera, operetta, and lead in oratorio. And so obviously a big interest in music. When I moved here, I met my neighbor, who was the president of the Chaminade Music Club, who immediately introduced me to Josephine Caruso, who was involved with the Chaminade Club and very involved with the orchestra. She was so dedicated, so devoted, so generous of her time and her money, and she was a unique person, and I don't think she will ever be forgotten. People just talk about her a lot and respect her and love her. Well, it didn't take long for Josephine to rope me in a friendly way and got me to the board. And we discussed the future of the whole orchestra and the concerto competition. We needed money. The funds were down to about $200. We tried everything. Somebody said, why don't we try membership? And I thought, membership for free concerts? Yeah, let's try it. That worked wonderfully. I suggested doing the journal. And they said, but we'll try it. And we tried it. And that worked wonderfully. So bit by bit, we got enough money to have the next season and the season after that. I started judging in the mid-'80s. Josephine knew that I was a singer. Well, actually, the first year I met Josephine, she needed a soprano for her Christmas concert. They were doing the Messiah, and she needed somebody who had high Cs. And she asked me to sing, and I also did a solo. I did Musetta's Waltz with her accompanying me, and I sang with the rest of the chorus, enjoyed it. And she asked me, she had already got me in the organization, and she asked me to judge because there were a couple of voice competitors. But then she realized that my musical knowledge was big enough to also stay on for the other instruments. And in those days, they had the winner of the competition perform with the orchestra, the first prize winner. And the others just got a prize or mention. But then we started seeing what talent we had and how much it meant to these young people to perform with the orchestra. So we decided to have 4 or 5, depending on the length of the pieces, perform with the orchestra. And that was a big success with the audience. And of course, it was wonderful for the young performers. They learn how to listen to the conductor, pay attention to the conductor. That's very important because sometimes they'll go at their own rhythm. But we've had good conductors hold them, and that's an invaluable experience. There are times when you would like to give everybody a prize, of course, but the procedure is quite complicated because there were hundreds of letters sent out to music teachers and music schools, and Josephine used to do all this by hand. Now, the last couple of years, it's been done mainly by the internet, which is wonderful, email. So then we had sheets to rate. The judges would have sheets to rate from order preference, the 10 best of the competitors. Everybody gets called and invited to come back the following year. Josephine used to call them afterwards. And then the last few years, I call them. And the excitement when you call them and say, you won the first prize or the second prize. Oh, thank you, wonderful. Yeah, the total joy, that's nice. Yeah. I would like to say that I've noticed over the years that the young people are getting looser, and they're expressing more passion than they used to. You can see on their faces and their body language that they're into the passion of performing, whether it be violin or cello. Or they're really, their whole body is into it. It's wonderful. When we open again, I'm not saying if, I'm saying when, think positive. We want the audience to come and bring their friends and bring their children and their grandchildren and their grandchildren's friends. The orchestra is wonderful, and it needs the audience. It needs you there. It needs to see your happy faces, which they usually are. So come, bring your smiles, bring your support.
I have spent a large part of my career helping young artists. I do it with my broadcasts when I try to present young artists and show the evolution of their talents. I am so thrilled when I see a kid like Drew Peterson. We met him in high school. He was, I don't remember, probably a junior, or wherever he was studying. He distinguished himself already in some way. And I invited him to be on my Young Artist Showcase. So this has been something that has been dear to my heart. It's been an essential part of my life, has been helping young players in whichever way I can do it. And even before I had the Young Artist Showcase, I had a program called The Listening Room. And yes, we had interviews with Pavarotti and Domingo and every other great artist you can think of, but I always made room for young players, the debut artist who was coming on. What makes that person tick? Why do we want to go see that artist? And so what the Yonkers Philharmonic has been doing is exactly the same thing. It's been searching out talent and giving them an opportunity. In my case, opportunity to play on the radio. In the Yonkers Philharmonic, the opportunity to play with an orchestra. And as I may have said before, this is a very rare commodity for high school kids. It's something that's exceptional, and it will live with them forever, because that experience is one of the memories that will live within them, and it will help focus their further attention, whether it's performing or even going into a totally different field. Maybe they'll be a doctor, maybe they'll be a scientist. It doesn't matter, but the discipline that has gone into being a winner of the Yonkers Philharmonic will enable them to go in whatever direction they choose, because it's the same spirit, it's the same energy, however it's directed specifically. And so you ask why I come back? Well, that's why. First of all, they keep asking me, which is nice. But mainly it's because I feel that I'm doing something useful. I'm doing my little bit to help these young players get attention and have the understanding that their music is important, not only to them, but to us.
I play the violin. I was the fourth place winner in the 2004 competition. So currently I am a researcher in a music instrument manufacturing company. My job is to create software technologies, especially using machine learning for musical applications and musical instruments. Well, during my high school years, I had strong interest in music technology. So after the competition and finishing high school, I went on to get my PhD in computer science, and my research topic in applying computer science and especially machine learning techniques for musical applications. Windy competition meant a lot to me. I get to play my favorite concerto with an orchestra, and one doesn't experience that quite often. And it's still one of my best memories that I've had. So I am not a performing musician, but music is a huge part of my life. It's part of my career, and the product and technologies that I make are intended to make all of the people happier who use musical instruments both as hobby and as a profession. In my free time, I perform in musical ensembles and chamber music groups. So it's still a big part of my life, even outside of work, I guess.
It's hard to put into words the value of the competition, because I imagine it's different for each of the players. Each one has been working on his or her instrument, very strongly focused on one element. What I found wonderful is that so many of these kids, what I like to do is talk with them before I, not just to read the bio of where they went to school and all that. But when I talked to them, I found that they had so many other interests. Some of them were painters. Some of them would write poetry. Some of them were experts at math. I was astonished that some of these were on the math team and all this kind of thing. These are youngsters who you think have to spend all of their time on the fiddle or on the cello or whatever they're playing. But no, they have time to be on the soccer team, and they have time to read books, and they have time to develop all sorts of other interests. And this is vitally important, because it's not enough, especially these days, I suspect, not enough just to play well. You have to understand what all of the music is about, and beyond that, what literature, what happened to these composers? Why did they write this music? Why are you playing a Mephisto waltz? I mean, who was Mephisto? If you don't know any of these things, then you're playing a certain notes, but you don't understand why you're playing, and the music does not have the full concept. It doesn't have the empathy. It doesn't have the meaning that it should have. So that's what's so important. It does seem to operate that kids who are interested in this music deeply enough to spend all of the time to practice, to work, to study, they have their imaginations sparked and their interest expand. And they say that learning music is very important. After all, you have to learn to count, right? So that's a math skill. And you have to look at all these Italian titles. You got to learn some kind of language. So these things are sort of automatically built in. There are outside interests that come sparking together and enhance, if they are in the proper hands of most of these kids, enhance the performances themselves. So for those reasons, and I guess I can give you another couple of dozen if you have time, but really you get the point, that there's so much that these kids bring to their performances beyond the notes. I think there is a danger in putting too much emphasis on, quote, winning. I think, yes, you can get somebody who is so distraught by losing or not coming in first or whatever it may be, that they are discouraged. But I think that's comparatively rare. I think we all face discouragement. We all face frustration. We all can't do what we want to do on many occasions. So the fact that they don't win, what counts more than winning in this instance is the fact that they are in this ambiance, they are in this environment, and they see that there are other youngsters, their own age, their own colleagues, their own brothers, sisters in a sense, that are in the same situation. Some of them are winning, some of them are not winning. But they all have an inspiration within them to perform. And that's why they're there. They want to be heard. They want to bring their ideas, their music to people listening. And they should be told, as they will feel, that there are, the field is filled, the professional arena is filled with artists who lost competitions, who didn't win. There are many others who never entered competitions in the first place. So competition is a stepping stone. It's not everything. And as I think you pointed out, there are times where you just have a bad day, you have a memory slip, you have anything. Now, compassionate judges will figure that in. And somebody plays a wrong note, they're not going to say, well, it's a wrong note, out. No, because we're listening to the music. And we are understanding that these, on top of everything else, these kids are under pressure. There's tension involved. There is a competition, so they're keyed up. It's more difficult. It's one thing to play in your studio and another thing to go out and perform in public. So my aunt always said that she studied with Leopold Auer, and he went backstage to see one of his students who was going out. And he came back and he said, you know, that person is 100%. But when you go out on stage, you need 150%. And that's what it is. There is something extra that you need to go beyond. And I think we learn. We try something, it doesn't work. Okay, what did I do that I could do better next time? Each of these competition steps is or should be, a learning experience. So winning or losing, obviously you want to win. But if you don't win, you analyze yourself. What did I do wrong? Was I pressuring? Was I trying to show off? What did I do that I shouldn't do? Or what did I not do that I should work on? Each one of these steps is a learning experience. And that's another element that makes competitions useful in the development of a career.
Hi, my name is Will Robin. I am a saxophonist and former and current saxophonist, and I participated in the competition, concerto competition in 2006 as a saxophonist. I played the Glazunov Concerto with the orchestra, and I'm actually not sure what my rank was, but I very much enjoyed the performance with the orchestra. It was an amazing experience to play with an orchestra live, to have the opportunity to play with such a great orchestra like the Yonkers Philharmonic, and I'm very grateful for that experience. I can't say that there was one particular moment when I first decided I wanted to be a musician, but it was something that I was really interested in through middle school and high school and just became more and more passionate about. And what I ultimately discovered after continuing to study saxophone performance in college is that what I really wanted to be was to be a music historian or musicologist. And so I now teach music history as a musicologist at the University of Maryland. I've been teaching there for about 5 years. It's a great university teaching and research job. My first book, which you can see here, just came out last month with Oxford University Press. I do a lot of research on contemporary music. And I still do, along with my teaching and research, play saxophone, often locally with fellow musicians, not a community orchestra. I do a lot of kind of experimental improvisation in the Silver Spring, Maryland area. And my one bit of advice for young musicians, is to, of course, keep sticking with it. But, I think a lot of the focus that we have on young musicians is practice, 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 practice. And as someone who has, since high school, and really since high school especially, been fascinated by reading about the history of music, understanding the lives of the composers who have created it, understanding the kind of analytical detail behind pieces of music, I really encourage aspiring musicians to, as much as you are playing your instrument, learn about what you're playing. Study the music you're playing, listen to a lot of music, not just music for your instrument, but music for other instruments, music in other genres, popular music, jazz, world music, other traditions, and read books about music and find out more, because it's really all of the great musicians that you admire. They're not just practicers. They are intellectuals who develop a deep love of their music alongside a deep love of music history. So I think that's really important for musicians to understand, and I hope this was helpful. Thanks.
One of the things I think that the competition has served is that the siblings of many of these players are sitting there, and there you have an 8-year-old who's watching his 15-year-old sister play this concerto. It's an inspiration to the younger kid to say, I can do that one day. So many artists are inspired one way or another. They hear a recording of somebody and say, wow, that's fabulous. Or they hear an instrument. Oh, I never heard a viola sound like that. That's so beautiful. I want to play that. Each of these encounters is what each of a kid develops. It builds within him, and where there's a musical talent and where there's a musical gift and musical interest, it's just a stepping stone. And the fact that one kid can see an older youngster playing with an orchestra, that's high in inspiration as you can get. in every field, there are elements that seem to be eternal. I mean, Shakespeare. Why are we so excited about Shakespeare? Why is there a Shakespeare festival just up the river from us? Why is there Shakespeare in the park? What has Shakespeare got to do with us today? The answer, everything. I mean, he touched everything that we have to deal with today. In the same way, certain music by the composers who have lasted, is vital to us today because it has some sort of an interior message that goes beyond the normal. There are great composers, there are less great composers, but the less great composers make us realize how the composers that are great, or why they are great. They say you wouldn't understand light if you don't know darkness. Well, if you don't know that there are a lot of almost Mozarts out there, you don't realize how special Mozart is. And that's why I think the so-called classical music, it doesn't refer to the classical era, but it means what we're calling concert music. There's never been a good phrase for it. But the music that we love, and so we know what it is, the elements of it speak to us the way it speaks to these young kids. And the very fact that these kids are willing to devote so much of their time and energy to the music just refreshes it for us as listeners. And we are recharged, our own batteries are recharged by the way they have devoted themselves at a very early age. I mean, just think of all the competitive things that are drawing the interest of these high school kids. And yet they care enough to work hours on developing their skills in order to bring this music to us. They need to perform almost as much as we need to hear them perform. And that's why when they come together, the music and the audiences, they make a whole that is very satisfying. I hope this retrospective has been as fascinating for you as I think it has been for me, and just remembering all the wonderful talent that has progressed through the Yonkers Philharmonic for so many wonderful years. And I may have said this already, but the way you see these kids moving forward, some of them into high-level performances, some of them into other musical activities, teaching, and being a librarian, whatever it is, these auditions are so important for the development of the youngsters and our own enjoyment as audiences. We very much hope, of course, that next year we'll have a full season, all of you guys can come back and enjoy these programs and concerts in person, and that we will have the live auditions, and we will have another winners concert in the spring. And if you guys ask me, I will be delighted to come back and greet you once again in person. I'm Bob Sherman. Thanks so much for listening.